In this experiment, we recorded an electrocardiogram, which is representative of the electrical event in the heart. In the ECG recorded from a frog, there was a combined SVP and T wave. The SVP wave indicates atrial depolarization, and the T wave represents ventricular repolarization. The PR segment extends from the end of the SVP T wave to the beginning of the QRS complex, representing the time between atrial depolarization and ventricular depolarization. The RR interval was used to determine the heart rate by dividing 60 by the time between the peaks. The QRS complex indicates ventricular depolarization. The QT interval extends from the beginning of the QRS complex to the end of the T wave and represents ventricular depolarization and repolarization. Since we have a combined SVP T wave, the modified QT interval extends to the end of the SVP T wave. Using an isotonic transducer, we measured the systolic contraction amplitude, which represents the total change of the length of the heart during contraction. In nodal cells, isoproterenol is a beta-1 adrenergic receptor agonist. The GS-alpha subunit activates adenylyl cyclase, which converts ATP to cyclic AMP. As high levels of cyclic AMP accumulate in the cell, cyclic AMP binds to and activates the mixed cation funny channels. Cyclic AMP also activates pKa, which phosphorylates L-type calcium channels, allowing for the influx of calcium into the cell. The effects are an increase in permeability of sodium and an increase in calcium permeability. The overall effects are an increase in heart rate and a decrease in the PR interval.
The increase in permeability of sodium through the funny channel leads to an increase in the phase 4 slope, allowing it to reach threshold faster. The increase in LTCC activity increases the phase 0 slope, leading to a faster depolarization and therefore an increase in AV node conduction and a decrease in PR segment. The increase in LTCC activity allows them to activate at a lower threshold potential. The combined increase in phase 4 and phase 0 slopes lead to a shorter duration action potential, and the nodal cells are able to fire more frequently.
In contractile cells, isoproterenol binds to a beta-1 receptor. The GS-alpha subunit activates adenylyl cyclase. ATP is converted to cyclic AMP. Cyclic AMP then activates pKa. pKa then activates LTCCs, allowing for an influx of calcium into the cell. pKa then phosphorylates phospholamban and inactivates it. Phospholamban normally inhibits circuit 2 activity, preventing the influx of calcium into the sarcoplasmic reticulum. However, when pKa inactivates phospholamban, circuit 2 can pump calcium into the sarcoplasmic reticulum. pKa also stimulates RYR2 on the sarcoplasmic reticulum, allowing calcium to exit. Calcium then binds to troponin, which causes a conformational change in tropomyosin. This increases cross-bridge cycling and causes a positive inotropic effect. The increase in cross-bridge cycling increases the active tension generated, shifting the total tension curve to the left, leading to a greater stroke volume. An increase in the strength of contraction allows more blood to be ejected from the ventricle, leading to a decrease in end-systolic volume. Overall, the stroke volume increase is proportional to the increase in systolic contraction amplitude.
As heart rate increases, there is an accumulation of calcium in the cell. The high calcium levels deactivate LTCCs and causes calcium-dependent potassium channels to open. This leads to a shorter phase 2 plateau, causing phase 3 repolarization to occur sooner. This will lead to an observed decrease in the QT interval.
In nodal cells, caffeine is a phosphodiesterase inhibitor. Normally, phosphodiesterase breaks down cyclic AMP into AMP, but since caffeine inhibits phosphodiesterase, there is an increase in cyclic AMP. Cyclic AMP binds to funny channels, allowing for an influx of sodium into the cell. Cyclic AMP also activates pKa, which phosphorylates the LTCCs, allowing for an influx of calcium into the cell. The effects are an increase in permeability of sodium and an increase in permeability of calcium. The overall effects are an increase in heart rate and a decrease in the PR segment.
Since caffeine increases the amount of cyclic AMP in the cell, it has similar effects to isoproterenol. It leads to an increase in the phase 4 slope, which leads to an increase in heart rate. It also increases the phase 0 slope, leading to a faster AV node conduction and therefore a decrease in PR interval.
In contractile cells, phosphodiesterase normally breaks down cyclic AMP into AMP, but caffeine inhibits phosphodiesterase and increases the amount of cyclic AMP in the cell. Similar to isoproterenol, the increase in cyclic AMP increases pKa activity. pKa phosphorylates LTCCs, allowing the influx of calcium into the cell. pKa then phosphorylates phospholamban and inactivates it. Phospholamban normally inhibits SERCA2. When pKa inactivates phospholamban, SERCA2 can pump calcium into the sarcoplasmic reticulum. pKa also stimulates RYR2 on the sarcoplasmic reticulum, allowing calcium to exit. Calcium then binds to troponin, which causes a conformational change in tropomyosin. This increases cross-bridge cycling and causes a positive inotropic effect. As seen with isoproterenol, the increase in the force of contraction leads to a decrease in the end systolic volume. Overall, there is an increase in stroke volume, which is proportional to the increase in systolic contraction amplitude observed.
As seen with isoproterenol, as heart rate increases, there's an accumulation of calcium in the cell. The high calcium levels deactivate LTCCs and cause calcium-dependent potassium channels to open. This leads to a shorter phase 2 plateau, causing phase 3 repolarization to occur sooner. This will lead to an observed decrease in the QT interval.
In contractile cells, the effects of high extracellular potassium can be explained by Goldman's equation. As the concentration of potassium on the outside of the cell increases, the resting membrane potential increases in the positive direction. The resting membrane potential gets closer to threshold and the cell becomes more excitable. However, as the resting membrane potential continues to increase, the inactivated voltage-gated sodium channels are unable to deactivate in phase 3 repolarization. As action potentials continue to fire, the number of sodium channels that remain inactivated increases. This is known as a depolarization blockade. Since the sodium channels are inactivated, depolarization cannot occur, therefore there are no action potentials initiated. Since there are no action potentials, there is no recorded ECG and the muscle will not contract, resulting in an SCA of 0.